Hello, third grade. Today we're going to be working on Module 3, Lesson 9. This is Miss Tragi with you here today. Let's get started. Here are our questions for today. Essential question: how do stories help us understand immigrants' experiences? Focusing question: what challenges do immigrants face in a new country? And our craft question: Excel. How do I use linking words and phrases in comparison writing? So let's start with our welcome question for today. What are 3 challenges Misako faced when she went to Japan? Think back to what you remember from our story, Tea with Milk, to think about 3 challenges she faced. So maybe you came up with these 3 challenges: that she had to improve her Japanese, Misako was lonely, Misako missed the foods from home, she had to learn new customs, that she had to give up going to college. Those are some challenges you might have thought of when thinking back to our story. To get our lesson started today, for our launch, we're going to be listening to an interview with Anna K. Nakamura, who is a Japanese American woman who moved to Japan. As you listen to her interview, make some notes about things you might think are important. I will ask you a question after we're done listening.
Of an American was Caucasian or any, non-Asian. So to meet an Asian American, especially a Japanese American, for them was, where do you categorize? How do you fit this person into their idea? So I probably have changed that idea for a lot of people who've met me. But it also made me aware of being both, that I'm neither one nor the other. I am at both. And so for many Japanese, they go, oh, does that mean your mother is American? I said, no, my father is American too. And that kind of throws them off. But you have a Japanese name. I said, yes, because my father and my mother are ethnically Japanese, but their nationality is American. They were born and raised in America. So that sort of opens a lot of conversation. It has also made me aware of, in some ways, how Western I am as opposed to Japanese. But at the same time, I guess growing up in Hawaii, being both was not unusual. You study Japanese, you learn, you practice certain Japanese customs. That was not unusual. But for Japanese here, it's unusual. It's like, how do you do both? And it's not doing both, it just naturally occurs. So at one time, it's like the students or even the teachers would say, so which side of your family, so does that make you half? I said, no, it doesn't make me half. I'm 100% American because that's my nationality. But I'm also 100% Japanese because all my grandparents originally came from Japan. So I'm not half as much as I'm maybe 200%. And so for them, it's like a whole different concept.
After listening to her interview, here's a word we might need to better understand. She used the word ethnicity. Ethnicity means the condition of belonging to a group with a shared language, history, or culture. Now I want you to think about this question. How do the experiences of Anna K. Nakamura help you better understand the challenges Misako faced? You might say that people who met Misako were probably confused that she had a Japanese name but was American, or that people who met Misako probably wondered if she was Japanese or American, or like Ms. Nakamura, Misako had to figure out how to be both Japanese and American. So you probably noticed that our character and the interview we listened to of Anne, they shared some similar experiences and challenges. One of the main parts of today's lesson is that we're going to be learning about dialogue today, and we're going to notice it in our story, Tea with Milk. Let's get started. So let's begin by understanding what even is dialogue. Well, dialogue are the words a character speaks. So if we looked at the word dialogue, which is a noun, its definition is the exact words spoken by a fictional character. So look at these two sentences from page 10 of Tea with Milk. She did not understand how anyone could sit on the floor for such long stretches. And then the sentence, "Why do I have to do this?" she exclaimed one day. Think, which one is dialogue? If you picked the second sentence, "Why do I have to do this?" she exclaimed one day, you're correct. That sentence is an example of dialogue because it's what our character, Misako, said, her exact words from the story. Now let's continue thinking about dialogue through this question. How does the author show the difference between Misako's words and the author's words? Think about if there's anything you've ever noticed in a story that comes up around the words a character says. If you're thinking that Misako's words are in quotation marks and have their own punctuation, you are absolutely correct. Look at this helpful hint here. Dialogue will always be put in quotation marks. Those quotation marks are then a quick way for us to see that there's dialogue in a story or text. Now I would like you to listen as I reread page 10 to you from our story. Here I go. At home, Misako took lessons in flower arranging, calligraphy, and the tea ceremony. She did not understand how anyone could sit on the floor for such long stretches. "Why do I have to do this?" she exclaimed one day. "I'm not going to be a florist or a sign painter, and I like my tea with milk and sugar." "You are going to be a proper Japanese lady," her mother said. "All I want is to go to college and then have an apartment of my own. A young lady needs a husband from a good family." "A husband? I'd rather have a turtle than a husband." "We have hired a very good matchmaker," her mother said. Now that we've re-listened to that part of the story, how do you know who says a young lady needs a husband from a good family? You might be thinking that it's her mother that said it, because from that page, you know that Misako and her mother are having a conversation that begins when Misako says, "Why do I have to do this?" And you might also be thinking that Misako's not interested in getting a husband, so it makes sense that the mother says, "A young lady needs a husband from a good family." Those are some clues about how you know she is talking to her mother, or that her mother says that line. Now I want you to think, how do Misako's words on page 10 deepen your understanding of her character? Well, after thinking about her character, you might say, when she says, "Why do I have to do this?" her words show that she doesn't enjoy her traditional Japanese customs, which lets me understand how she's feeling. Or you might have noticed that Misako says, "All I want to do is go to college and then have an apartment of my own." Her words here show that she doesn't want to marry or be a traditional or proper Japanese lady. She wants to do what she would have done in America instead. Or you might have thought that Misako says, "I'd rather have a turtle than a husband." These words really show that she wants to be independent and live her life following more American customs rather than Japanese customs. This slide is just a fun little extra bit of information I thought you all might enjoy. On this map, I've circled where Japan is and San Francisco, so you can see the distance between them. But don't forget, our globe is actually a circle, so they're kind of closer than you think. Yesterday, you went over the setting, character's goal, and plot of our story, Tea with Milk. So let's review those really quick. The setting of our story was San Francisco in Japan, that a long time ago there were clothes and cars that are old-fashioned, a war keeps grandfather from returning to California, and there has not been a war in Japan for a long time. The character's goal for what does the character want in the story was that first Misako wants to live in San Francisco, and later Misako wants to feel at home in Japan. And for our plot, our order of events, or our sequence, we can use our transition words. First, Misako moves to Japan with her family, even though she wants to go to college in San Francisco. Then next, Misako attends high school again to improve her Japanese, and she doesn't have any friends. Then, her mother makes Misako learn how to be a Japanese lady and tries to arrange a marriage for Misako. After that, she leaves home and goes to Osaka by herself, and she gets a job in a department store. Later, Misako meets Joseph, a young man who speaks English, and they become friends. And finally, Misako and Joseph decide to get married and make a home in Japan. Today, we're going to think about Misako's challenges, solutions, and important ideas that she faced in our story, Tea with Milk. This will continue what we did yesterday with thinking about the goals, setting, and plot that we just reviewed. So we're going to take a second to think about each one of these three sections, and I'm going to ask you to pause at certain times so you can write down some ideas on your own. So let's start with challenges. I want you to take a second and pause and write down some challenges you think Misako faces. Now, here are some challenges you might have said. She has to learn about things that don't seem to interest her. Her mother wants her to be a typical Japanese woman. That she wants to live like an American woman. And that Misako's unhappy and wants to do other things. You might have also had some other challenges, which are great. Now let's jump over to solutions. Please pause for a second as you write down some solutions Misako used to solve her challenges. Here are some things you might have written. Her actions show that she doesn't give up. She finds someone who speaks English and is not so lonely in Japan anymore. She finds a way to live like an American in her new home, or that she leaves to live as she wants instead of the way her mother wants. And now for our final section of important ideas. Please pause again for the last time to make some notes of what you think are important ideas and takeaways from our story. Here are some things you might have said. One important idea is that Misako moves to Osaka so she can live like an American daughter. And another important idea is that she feels that both Japan and America can be home, but she decides to stay in Japan, yet keep some of her American traditions. Now I want us to remember some linking words we've gone over. So let's remember these words and phrases that show comparisons and also how things contrast. So two linking words that show how things compare are similarly and both. And some linking phrases we use to show how things contrast would be even though, however, and on the other hand. We reviewed those linking words because you're going to have to use them in a short paragraph writing activity today for handout 9B. Once you get to 9B, you are going to be making one paragraph for me. You're going to choose whether you want to write about how these two illustrations are similar, or choice 2, how are these two illustrations different? So you're going to pick only one choice 1, or choice 2, and give me some evidence that proves how these two illustrations are similar or how they are different. Then make sure you highlight those linking words you used in your writing and turn it in. And now we're jumping into the last part of our lesson today, our deep dive. For our deep dive today, we'll be working on pronoun antecedent agreement. So there might be a lot of questions about what that even means. So let's start from the top. You might ask, what's a pronoun again? Well, a pronoun is a word that takes place of a noun. For example, he, she, they, and other words that we've talked about in class. Then you might ask, well then what's an antecedent? And an antecedent, it's a word or a phrase that's replaced by the pronoun. For example, in the sentence, John's dog is cute. John is an antecedent that could be replaced with the word his. So the antecedent is just what you could replace with a pronoun. So Miss Tragi loves her students. We could change Miss Tragi to the word she, or better yet, I should say the pronoun she. Now that we've reviewed what a pronoun is and what an antecedent is, we have to talk about how they agree. So what does it mean for a subject and a verb to agree? Well, that means when the subject and the verb agree, they're both referring to either a singular subject or a plural subject. So they have to work well together. So let's look at this original sentence here. Joseph's parents said they adopted Joseph. Now I'm going to show you two revised options. Joseph's parents said they adopted him, or Joseph's parents said they adopted them. Think about which pronoun makes the most sense there to replace the underlined word Joseph. Should we replace it with the pronoun him or the pronoun them? If you chose the first sentence, him, you're correct. Him is the correct pronoun to replace Joseph because they are both singular in nature and they reflect the word Joseph. It's a good pair to replace that word. So now we're going to look at some examples of singular and plural pronouns. To start, you might be wondering, what is an example of a singular pronoun? Well, the word he is a singular pronoun because it can replace a singular noun. So now let's look at some other singular pronouns. I, me, my, mine, one, one's, you, your, he, him, his, she, her, hers, it, and its. Those are all examples of singular pronouns. Now if we look at the plural pronouns, you'll see the pronouns we, us, ours, you, your, they, them, their, and theirs. So those are some examples of different singular and plural pronouns. So awesome job, third grade. Now I'm going to direct you to go back to Google Classroom. Please make sure you complete handout 9B, where remember, you're only choosing one paragraph to write from me. You'll see two sentence starters, but only pick one and finish writing for one of them. And then make sure you also click on the link to your exit ticket. It'll look like this and say Lesson 9 Exit Ticket with a picture of our story, Tea with Milk at the top. Keep up the hard work. Don't forget, if you haven't worked for an hour yet in language arts, we want you to either practice your fluency attached after this, review some spelling words, or review some vocabulary, or read for 20 minutes. Awesome. We'll talk to you guys soon, third grade. Bye.